Sorry about that. All right. So my name is Andrea Gauthier. I'm from the University College London. I'm a researcher in education and technology. And online, please do tell me if you can or can't hear me, just to double check that. Yes, you can. Okay, great. Thank you. So again, welcome. This event is very generously sponsored by our department, Department of Culture, Communication, and Media. So again, thank you for coming. First things first, though, we have to go through a bit of housekeeping because we are a university and we take data protection and informed consent very seriously. So first thing is that this event is being recorded and we will be putting it online. So that's something that you should be aware of by attending this event. So you might be, if you're within view of the camera or if you're online with your camera on, you will be kind of featured in some capacity in the recording. So the purpose really is to enhance the ECO initiatives that you're all doing in schools, as well as our own research that's about technology and data and visualization, which you'll be hearing more about today. And because of this, we're going to be taking some data from this event, like the number of people so that we know how far our reach is, small or large, where you guys come from, what type of role you have. We'll be using some of the quotes or statements to try to produce a key takeaways document that might be of use to you. And we'll also keep your email for 6 months so that we can ask you later how you felt about the event. Or how it's maybe impacted you and what you do. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions about this. And you can find UCL's general privacy notice here. It's also on the Eventbrite page if you need to access it later. So again, just by attending, you consent that your name and email address will be saved, but please contact me if you want to opt out. And we'll be making the event recorded, and you might feature in this. And we'll be taking anonymized statements or quotes. But if someone watches the recording, they could link that back to you. But we're not talking about anything personal or intense here, so it should all be in good fun. And hopefully we learn a lot from each other. And secondly, the fire route is down these steps and then to the front. And I'm just going to say everyone follow Stephanie. Yes. The snacks are vegan for the sustainability theme. And they're a bit delayed. I apologize, but they are coming. And yes, when we're having the open discussion, if you can use one of our, now it's 2 microphones, so that the guys online can hear you properly. Right, so yes. Yes, thank you, Lena. I should share my slides. Okay. I thought I had it all figured out. I know. I'm getting there. Here we go. Screen 2. Sharing screen 2. All good? Excellent. All right. Sorry about that, guys online. So just so you can have a quick peek, this is what you're consenting to for being attending today. All right. All right, so let's get going. So to kick off, I wanted to see where everyone's from and what your role is. So you can scan this QR code if you are a smartphone user. If not, we can just take a poll. Oops. Hopefully those online can access this too via their smartphone. Is that working for everybody? What is that sound? Yeah, are we all there? Okay, we're all good, I think. So let's go to this. Oh. All right, so looks like we're mostly teachers, some parents in the room or online, other school staff, one academic, and other. I wonder who other is. The folks that all right, so and what city or town or village, should have been inclusive there, do you work with children, and in what city or town? That should be the next question on your Mentimeter. Or if you're a parent, what school do your kids go to school? Oh, we got a London. That's exciting. A few Londons. Oh, okay, York, great. All right, so I think everyone's probably just about there. I'm gonna have to stop this. So fiddly. Thank you. Okay, so we're all in the same place again. Great. So yeah, I think those results are telling, so that we have a bit of everybody in the room, a bunch of different school stakeholders. Also, we have local representation, but also some national representation with York and London. So that's pretty exciting. So as we'll see today, and from the experiences that you'll share with us, you know, we need everyone involved, and there are a bunch of different strategies that we can take to supporting children's climate action and leadership. So before we get into the meat of this topic, just to give you a brief overview. So this intro is almost done. We'll talk a little bit about eco schools and also One Planet Living, which are two approaches, but there are many more. We'll then have 3 case studies: Europa, Abingdon School, and St. Nick's. We'll then do an open discussion, so hopefully everyone can contribute something about the challenges, best practices, and the role of stakeholders. And then we'll talk a bit about our research that we've been doing with Europa about the potential of technology, data, and visualization. And then for those of you in person, we will have some networking and hopefully snacks. So to kick off, just to give a bit of an overview of the Eco Schools Green Flag program. So I'm not affiliated with Eco Schools at all. I just come through it through Europa, who are on the program. So it's probably one of the largest and maybe most well-known, longest-standing organizational bodies attempting to support kids' climate actions through schools. So the program outlines 7 steps for schools to follow, including forming an eco committee or an eco club of kids and at least one teacher to lead them. The kids then conduct an environmental review where they go around their school grounds and talk to teachers and other children about you know, how well the school is performing on specifically 10 sustainability topics. And then with the help of the eco coordinator, the eco committee will create an action plan to see how the school can improve on at least 3 of these topics. The schools are then asked to integrate sustainability content into their curriculum to kind of showcase to children how action in these areas is really important. Informing and involving is about raising awareness with other community stakeholders or school stakeholders, and also trying to get them involved in the activities. Monitoring and evaluation is, as you might think, is about tracking how well the school is doing in their activities and kind of trying to demonstrate impact. And finally, the eco committee produces then an eco code, which is kind of like a mission statement for the school that they can, everyone in the school can engage with. So that's one approach. And then we have a second approach that we're going to talk about. And I believe Michelle from One Planet Abingdon is going to speak to this. Shall I deliver you a microphone?
Thank you. So as Andrea said, my name is Michelle Charlesworth and I helped to co-found One Planet Abingdon. One Planet Abingdon is a climate emergency centre that was co-founded by quite a few different organisations in Abingdon because the town council had declared a climate emergency in 2019. And by 2021, the residents in Abingdon were asking, what's going on? We've not heard anything since they declared a climate emergency. And so the town council offered us the space in the bowels of the museum in order to do something for the climate. And this is the something that we have created. And because my previous role was a sustainability community champion using the One Planet Living framework, I thought it would be the perfect tool for us to use and to encourage the town council to agree that Abingdon become a One Planet Living town. So basically what we're saying is everything that we do is according to the 10 principles of the One Planet Living framework. So within the Climate Emergency Centre, which is run by volunteers, everything we do is according to those principles. For example, materials and products, we will have repair cafes for culture and community. We recently were involved in the Refugee Week and we had a whole host of activities culminating in a lovely communal meal with the refugees that live in Abingdon so that we could start to engage with that part of our community who we've not yet been able to reach. And there was 40 of us in the space. It was amazing. So yes, we are just about to embark upon a new sustainable water project. We received some funding and we are looking for some citizen scientists to help us sample water so that we can engage on that principle as well. So yes, in a nutshell, 40 or so volunteers actively engaged in opening up this cafe space where we sell nothing and invite in everyone. And we're doing a lot of work with schools. That is a huge area of work for us because it is for the future of the young people that we are doing this. And so from Duke of Edinburgh Awards to work experience to volunteering and engaging with schools through their eco clubs, we are up for it and doing it and need to be engaging with all the schools. That is our intention. The school should be using our space for learning. And we're very, very open to going to the school and doing assembly, doing whatever we can. So yes, I think, is that my 3 minutes done?
Perfect. Thank you so much, Michelle. And maybe you can keep that microphone over there since others around that table will be talking. So I just wanted to point out, these are just 2 programs. There are so many more online. But given that there are some people in the room today working with these 2 programs, those are the the ones that we highlighted. So our first case study is Europa, and Stephanie Harris.
I have 7 minutes. Yeah.
Andrea, it's telling me this.
I don't signal to you.
It is very strict, so I am putting my my phone. Okay, so I am a year 2 teacher here at Europa. I work in this classroom. I'm an English teacher in the Spanish section. And this year, we as a school decided to create an eco club. And the idea that I had in mind was to work towards the Eco School label or award. I didn't actually know about other approaches like the One Planet, or so I just went with it. I didn't do very much research. And we created a little eco club. I asked teachers. We are in a very democratic school here, where we have a lot of freedom. So I asked teachers if they wanted to participate, and those who said yes, then I had their children. So I had 5 classes, and the children were, because there were lots of children who wanted to be part of the eco club. They were very enthusiastic, so they had to be voted in most of the time, or they were chosen kind of, you know, by chance by the teachers. And we met every Wednesday morning during break time, and I'll go back to that as one of the challenge later. And that's been going on since, I think, about October. And as Andrea pointed earlier, in the Eco School program, one of the first things you do is an environmental review. So it's very structured, which is actually why I chose it. And we have 10 topics, which are very detailed. There's criteria for each topic. And you go through it with the children and go around or ask teachers to check, are we doing this or are we not doing this? And then based on that environmental review, you get a score. So our score, it was 37 out of 100. It is what it is. The good news is that we are working on it, and it's an opportunity to improve. And you can see on the right-hand side the scores on each of the topics. Then what we did, this took quite a few weeks to go through this with the children, and it wasn't the most fun part of the whole process, but it was necessary, and I liked how structured it was and how we were doing this in a very systematic way. Then I presented this to the children. So I showed them the scores based on the time available to us and the fact it was the first year. I kind of looked at how easy it was to implement, and I asked the children how interested they were. And based on these 3 factors, then we chose to work this year on litter, marine life, and what's biodiversity. That's the 3 topics we chose. We were supposed to choose at least 3 topics to be given the Eco School Award. We could have chosen more, but we decided to focus on those. Am I okay with time? Successful projects. We've done a lot of projects throughout the year, and with different approaches. So one of the projects that was quite successful was a plastic mural, and this was not done by the Eco Club. It was done in a class where, as part of a science topic, we talked about materials, and I decided to steer the children towards plastic and plastic pollution, and we talked about plastic pollution in the oceans. And then we started from there, collecting lots of tops from the community and making a huge plastic mural, which the children are so proud about. And that was very successful because, in fact, it was very creative. The children love art, and it was only in my classroom, and I could integrate it in my curriculum, in my program. The second successful project was the Earth Day celebration. We decided to make a big day of it, and we asked the children to dress up in blue and in green using recycled clothes, to bring no plastic in their snack boxes. We had an assembly, and the Eco Club, I came for that day. The Eco Club made a podcast, and they talked in different languages about why it's important, and it was so powerful how eloquent children were, even at very young age, about this topic. And so this was very successful because, well, I came in, I had extra time because I was volunteering, and it was a special event, and children really resonate to something like Earth Day. And then finally, the last project I chose was the UCL collaboration. We've had number of projects that we've been working with UCL on. And this year they've been helping us create an eco tracker, which they will show you later. But this is a really, truly amazing tool that I'm really proud that Europa and the children actually created this. How did we measure success? I'm going to be very brief. I am not going to talk about this. I know this is not looking fun at all, but this is kind of a template that is given by the Eco School organization, which helps you kind of put on paper, what are you trying to do? How long is this going to last? How are you going to monitor it? And how will you know that you've been successful? And this has been truly helpful to me to kind of try and keep track on all the different projects that we've been doing, whether they've been done by the Eco School or whether they've been done by classes. Because this year we've been successful at Europa because it hasn't just been the Eco Club. Classes have said, I want to take part, and they've taken bits of all the different project ideas, and we've been sharing it that way. I've already mentioned it, so I'm not going to spend very much on here, but I liked the Eco School approach just because I had a starting point. I didn't have to research very much. I just had to create a login on their website. It was free, and all the questions are there, all the resources are there. And I think that's just helped me get started. It doesn't mean it's the best approach, or I certainly now want to research others. We can probably be in Eco School and other things at the same time, but I have felt that it really helped me get going, and it's certainly rewarding that now the children and the whole community will know that Europa is an Eco School. Challenges. At Europa School, we are a bilingual school. Children spend half the time in English and half the time in another language. This means that as a teacher, the days and hours are super intense. And so finding the time to do all this extra, it shouldn't be extra, but we can come back to that later. Extra things means if you do that, maybe it can be instead of something else, and it can't be. We don't want to pressure the teachers even more than they already are. And so for me, that's been a challenge. I've done this during my personal preparation time, during break time, and that it has worked. We are improving, we're moving forward, but it's not the ideal. The Eco Club was too short because it's all about time, and we need enough time that we can talk about things properly and do things. Not enough adults involved. I'm so happy today that there's so many people, because this topic is so dear to me, and you can't do it alone. You need others with you. And the size of the school, I mean, we are such a big school that if you want to change things, or just if you want to find out one thing about your school, here at Europa, you've got to go and knock on a door, and then knock on the other door, which is 300 meters away, and then go back. So that is a challenge. In a smaller school, it might be easier. And I've been thinking about next year. I would love 2 Eco Clubs running over lunchtime. And next year, I would like to have 3, if the teachers agree, for the classes that teachers agree for, to have 3 reps and swap over every term. So we are broadening the scope, and we are reaching at least 9 children per class, and continue to work with other classes, other teachers that are very engaged. And there are a number of teachers here. Europa is already doing a lot for the environment. And I would love to create an eco after school club as well. So I'm looking for parent volunteers, or I would like to build a team so that we can split and we can share, and it doesn't have to be one person. Okay. I think this is more than 10 minutes. Okay. Only a couple more.
Thanks, Stephanie. And now we have, and next up we have Tony from One Planet, from Abingdon School. Welcome.
Is it down or what?
Over.
Well, thank you, UCL, for putting the energy into this, and for Europa for hosting. My name's Tony Gray, as it says there, and I'm the appointed chair of the school's environmental committee. The head advertised for this post, and yeah, I was very keen to apply, having had a background in the environmental movement. I get a tiny bit of time, get a little bit of money, but my real incentive is to bring about seeing change. We meet as a committee once a term, and when I say we, that's students, student representatives are involved, staff are involved, governing body, and from time to time we're quite keen to get community groups like One Planet, as well as students and teachers from neighbouring schools as well to come along. I am sorry that I'm going to have to go quite soon after my talk because I have to get back to Abingdon School, but I'm very interested in some of the, the aspects of what you did there. It was very clean in terms of the action planning. I think there's so much that could be, I feel that we could be doing as a school that at times, that was a nice template. So I'd be very keen to use this opportunity to work tighter and closer with other representatives at other schools. From a UCL point of view, I'm very interested in this point, potential of technology, data and visualization there in terms of staff and student engagement. In terms of what we were doing as a school, our eco committee students meet weekly, and it was 2 little time, and again 2 members of staff involved in running it. But what we did see over time was student leaders, particularly in the 6th form or 5th year, emerge. And they've done some amazing things. So they've worked, with students from St. Helens, John Mason School, OX14 group of students. A real sort of activism about them. They hosted this conference where they created a youth manifesto of what they would like to see in their schools. And it was things like saying that they want to, they have eco committee meetings, but they would like not just more students involved, they would like more teachers involved in the teaching of content. When teachers are choosing resources, do they go for one that addresses sustainability? Cross-curricular, I was sort of thinking of that. Engagement with the wider community, affordable and accessible bus services. So they were coming together with ideas of what they would like to see. We were kind of working our way in terms of doing sustainability action. And there's a real sense from the governing body when we were reporting to them that we needed a clear policy and we needed a clear strategy of delivery. And that's where One Planet came in. We've seen some of the linkages with neighbouring schools. Our site manager had done One Planet framework training, so we could see the framework that was there. This conference was very much student-led. We had local MPs, we had experts, we wanted the students to put the lead on it. So what that created was our One Planet Living policy. So in September, on our #1 inset day, there will be training for all staff about our environmental policy, about the 10 objectives we're trying to achieve as a school, and trying to engage with staff in that process. We're setting up a teaching research group to look at how sustainability can be taught across the curriculum. And we looked at these 10 areas, and I say we, most probably was quite heavy in terms of the staff involvement. And then we wanted to get the students involved and the local community group involved. And what that generated was placing the students at the center of what we're trying to achieve. Identifying more of what we could do, but also identifying more of what we had already done as a school. So that was the idea behind the One Planet Living. And it was trying to maybe move away from the kind of, right, what's our energy efficiency on our buildings and tracking the data on that and sharing that, and can we do better? Looking at things such as what's our provision, what's our waste, very kind of top down, and actually trying to get, as I say, students more at the center of it. There is a lot there, as you can see on the next page. So we've tried to identify the 10 areas. What is it we want to try to do over the summer term? It's still too cluttered, it's still too much. So we've narrowed in on food for this term in particular. So we've had a big campaign in terms of food waste. We've worked with Sodexo, our supplier, to say, right, give us the data, what the food waste is. Let's run a campaign and let's see if we can plot what we're doing at Abingdon School to bring that down. At Abingdon Prep School, they're able to manage the food waste closer. So they've done a bit of a house competition to try and get the students more engaged with that. And we're trying to think of ways, we're struggling, and this is where, again, I would welcome ideas of how we can get students engaged in that kind of fun way that allows them to like kind of almost gaming in terms of environmental action. The other thing about food is about fair trade provision as well. So again, we work closely with our supplier to say, you know, is all the food from fair trade providers, and can we make sure, you know, that people are aware of this? And then, of course, the issue about trying to eat a more planet-friendly way, and the students in the eco committee are quite sensitive that they've found culture wars kicking up. You know, that the students feel, are they being lectured to about meat? So they're trying to find ways that actually overcome that and win them and bring them on board and bring about that change. This gives a feel for one of those 10 areas, and you can see it's a real long list of what we've done and what we plan to do. At the centre of what's changed here is we do this Oxwell survey of students, and what came up was one of the big #1 worries for students is eco-anxiety. So what that meant is that it was quite staff orientated, this originally. So we've gone instead to say, well, look, what are we doing for our young people to make themselves think not as consumers or producers, but as people that are having meaningful lives? So that again is kind of bringing about the sort of change that we're wanting to see. I'm also looking at staff involvement. So, you know, I'm trying to get more staff involved. We have a big campaign in September, which puts One Planet Living in our reception areas across our electric screens. So it's visible and everywhere to try and get more of our students coming to the eco committee, but being involved in other ways as well. We run a green gym at the school. So that's in terms of like composting and other community gardening. We have our 3rd-year science students doing other activities like air quality monitoring to stop cars or buses having their engines idling. But the last thing I'd say is our massive challenge is the engagement with the students. You know, we've had some great students there, but we need them from younger years, and we need them as student leaders to do real leadership that engages with all the students, that brings about the change that we want to see. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Tony. And thank you for coming. I know you have to leave. Do grab some snacks on your way out. Indulge. All right. So next up, we have Daniel and I believe Sue from One Planet Abingdon, who have been working with St. Nick's.
Did you get my slides?
I did. You can just press this.
Oh, you're going to let me do it. Go back. It'll go backwards.
Yeah.
Sorry. Say it.
Thank you.
Say it.
So go forward, just press this one.
Trouble is you can't see the screen.
So you can look down here.
Oh.
That might be better. I do no glasses.
Sorry, I'm Daniel. This is Sue, and we're the One Planet team that's descended on St. Nick's. We were invited because one of their classroom assistants, thank you, is a One Planet volunteer. So we had an in, and then we started negotiating with the headmaster, who was very, very keen to have us there. And we said on condition that there's a member of staff. So what happens is every Tuesday at 3:15, Sue and I turn up, 12 or 13 range of kids. I never understood what years they are. They're 7 to 10-year-olds. So very mixed ages, all, I say mixed abilities, but for their ages, they're all quite able kids.
Oh, sorry, one has a severe disability.
We have some behavioural curiosities. And I should say that is typically where we work. So I kick off with these grand ideas. I have no experience at all of what I'm doing. Kids are completely alien to me. Sue, next to me, hits me hard under the table.
Gently, gently, look at the size of it.
And has all the experience of being a scientist in academia and then a primary school teacher. So she knows exactly what she's looking at, which is very different to my experience. And it sort of works. We don't have a framework. We turn up and we almost ad lib it. We might exchange a few emails prior to that. So what I'm going to, no, not that one.
The
one?
one in the corner here. There we go.
Okay. Still can't see. Right, so we've been running since November last year, and it's pretty well. We had teachers' strikes, and a few things happened, so it's mostly weekly. And yes, through newsletters. So the headmaster sent out a newsletter, and there is, I gather, a waiting list because we've lost one and recruited one. How did it happen? Well, Toby was top of the waiting list. So what happens next year? There will be a churn. Some of the 7-year-olds might keep joining. None of the 10-year-olds have moved on.
It's choir night, I have to say. That's what we're competing with.
Choir night, football, girls' football, I should say. What was interesting with Andrea's briefing is how much he talked about children's leadership. I'm not really aware that they deliberately do it. What they do is they make it clear they don't want to be inside in a stuffy classroom. So what happens then is we go outside. So outside, I'm not measuring the success, but we have been gifted a raised bed and it's been planted and watered so we can explain different kinds of plants and habits and the value of water and weeding and compost and worms. So some practical activities there. Very early on, we had the national bird count. I saw somebody else had it on a slide. So we dispersed around the grounds, which are quite extensive, counted the birds. Sue had a fantastic video of her bird table. So for every bird we saw in the ground, Sue had 5 garden birds that descended on her bird table. And then we asked the kids to do it at home. Not sure all of them participated in that, but we tried to engage with what was already set up as a framework, which is the national bird count. Sue then brought in twigs for identification, which counts as a sort of outdoor activity, and litter picking. So we do that outside. So I don't say they're successful, but they're not unsuccessful. Taking that kind of age group out at 3 o'clock on a Tuesday afternoon counts as success. But I don't Sue disagree with me. I don't think the kids lead. I think we lead them with Joe. When I say Joe, Joe is the teacher, helping and controlling. I should say halfway through this, Joe expressed quite deep concern about the behaviour of the kids. That they come in with uniform and they're expected at civics to behave in a different way to the way they behave in a club, I gather. But towards the end of our relationship with them this term, they are behaving better, and Joe is complimenting them on that. So it's nothing to do with ecology, but they have got to know each other, which ones to follow, which ones to ignore, and they are behaving, I think, quite reasonably. Just find the button again. Thank you. So 2 other teachers have shown their face. One expressed concern about the plastic in her compost heaps. And it was suggested that the Eco Club take responsibility for the plastic and try to stop kids doing it. But what we've done instead, and I don't think it's been actually completed, but the exercise has been gone through, is write a letter to the supplier of the fruit and veg, which comes packaged. So instead of just stopping the plastic, taking the plastic out of the compost heap, stop it coming into the school grounds in the first place. So it was an exercise in letter writing. And I have another letter which hasn't been written, which is, if you saw the school, it has the most fantastic south-facing roof. And I can't look at it without thinking it should have panels on it. And that's another exercise possibly for next year, to write to the headmaster saying, Andy, why aren't there solar panels on your fantastic south-facing roof? Because it won't lose you money, but it'll probably generate money for you. So the teacher who had the compost heaps came in, and yesterday or Tuesday, another teacher came around and litter picked, because we needed more ratio, more staff to kids. But there's no reason why teachers couldn't join in, but they choose not to. Do you want to say something?
Well, I'm a primary school teacher, and when I had a class of children, I know I had £10 per child per year. There is no money in state schools, let's be absolutely honest. Solar panels, I know, I understand how he feels. I mean, all those new houses in Abingdon without a single solar panel on, I can get just as cross as anybody. But you also have to accept the reality that there is not enough money to keep the schools together, never mind put solar panels on the roof. So I have sympathy with what he's saying, but let's be realistic.
Let the
as
headmaster
well.
say that when the kids have expressed their opinion.
Well-
Could you? And,
For some reason, the lights are not working. Hold on.
and one of my little pet projects, which I thought was very clever, but has failed, not miserably, but failed, was the headmaster gave us a notice board, the Eco Council notice board. So we changed that to Eco Club. And we were building a food web. So the system, the way it was designed was our Eco Club had chosen the dormouse as their emblem. And one of them did a beautiful drawing of a dormouse, which is put as the beginning of the Eco Web, of the food web. And then the whole school is invited at an assembly to build the web, predator, prey, environmental connection. So they do a drawing and they describe the connection, and that goes on the notice board. Sorry, the one that goes on the notice board is chosen by our Eco Club. So they open the box, they look at the 4 or 5 entries, and they choose ones to put on the web. So you build the web. What we've got are 5. It goes from, I can remember, dormouse to something to rat snake. Beautiful drawings, and the headmaster has gifted books as prizes. And it has stalled. I can't explain why it's stalled. I have to say that Joe could have built it. But there hasn't been a huge amount of enthusiasm. But the beauty of it was, it's a notice board where all the parents collect their kids, the younger kids. So it's an opportunity for all the school to enter and see what their kids and other kids have done to build the food web. And then the pièce de résistance, excuse my French, is that you then put man's interference on the food. And we didn't get to that stage. So next year I'm going to see if I can prompt Joe to more conscientiously put the box out, get the entries in, judge them, and to build the food. What did you want to say?
I basically have gone in there because I think it's really good for children to use their eyes. So there are these climate action projects, which Daniel is very good at talking about. But also, I have to say, at the end of a school day, the children are, they're tired, and they find it harder to concentrate. We have children really from 7 to 10. One of our 10-year-olds has got so much information, he could run it himself, except he'd bore all the little ones to death, but he's got all the knowledge there. And then we also have one child who is also disabled and has a lot of difficult problems to deal with. And we try and encompass them all. And so Daniel has the ideas and leads them. And then I suppose my role has been to come in and do something practical with the children, because my feeling is the children need to do practical things. I brought the twigs in so the children could identify using a simple decision tree in order to find out, because one child came in and he'd been out for a walk with his parents and he'd found these twigs and he didn't know what they were. So that's what did it. We started talking about food webs. So then we came in and we did a practical demonstration of food webs with the children in the group. So they all understood exactly what a food web was and how things would occur. And then the other day, because, it's summer, they need to be outside. I prepared a scavenger hunt of things for them to find in the wild part of their school grounds. They don't have school grounds quite like you've got, but they do have a bit they call forest school, and they can find oak trees and lime trees and hawthorns and they could do all these things. And they're amazed because they could find them and they had no idea these things were there, and they live with these things. So Daniel, I have to say, has all the ideas about where we should go. And then I come in and try and make them look at things. Basically, I think that's the way we work.
Double act. And
Yes.
just in 30 seconds I haven't got. Our plan now is to water, partly between the forum set up by the town council, which we are racing up before. We've arranged a picnic. So try to get the kids that we know with their parents, with their siblings, at a water source, which will be the tank, and then explain to them what we could be doing. Because 50 yards from the school is a bit of dirt. It would be very simple to picnic that we have in port with council money to measure phosphate nitrates and turbidity.
Because
Yes.
you accidentally muted it.
Okay.
So hopefully
So,
online you
this is
didn't,
where
you
we
heard
made-
most of that.
Just someday I'll do but
I think,
I would like to
Yep.
point out that
Yep.
the other thing we have is that children are invited to come. And I know, because I've been a teacher and I've been a parent, that some of the children come because their parents don't want to pick them up till 4:15, which, you know, actually does slightly change the dynamics as well. It's good.
thank you so much both. And just for other people using the microphone, there's a button at the back. Be careful not to press it, because if the light goes blue, that means you're on mute. All right. So I'm hopefully online got most of that last portion. All right, so we are moving into an open discussion, hopefully engage all of you guys. I'm going to go to a bigger screen so that you can actually see the prompts. Let me exit that, and of course it stops sharing all the time. Okay, so we've had people behind the scenes very generously writing some notes as people have been talking. But let's hear from some others. So what works for you? What are some of the challenges? I'm going to hide these controls. There we go. How can we maximize impact? How do we engage others beyond the Eco Club or Eco Committee? And what role can parents play? Yes, you can. Yeah, you're good. I'm okay. Oh, no, you've just muted it.
This little button.
Is
Okay,
it
so I
green?
take it here, I think.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
good.
My question is at St. Nick's, you've been doing this lovely, amazing work with the children in an after-school club activity, which is great. But I'm kind of curious to know why it wouldn't have been possible. I guess I'm thinking with my hat of Europa, where we only have 2.5 days. I can only imagine a school where I have 5 days with the children. Surely we can find some time to run an eco club during the school hours. Was that not a possibility from the start, or was that discussed and then discarded?
Yes.
I'm afraid there might be two answers, one from me and one from Sue. The time and place suited me. So I was very happy not to question as to why it wasn't put into the school day. But I also had a sense that it was going to be a club, and the clubs do, and we end up competing with other clubs, which is a problem. But they do occur after school. And then you get what Sue suggested is actually used for childminding purposes as well.
I also think that it'd be very hard to expect a teacher to work through their lunch hour, which would be the only time in the day when a teacher could do it. I personally think that's asking the teachers a step too far. I really do. So I don't think it ever came up. This is why it's an eco club and not an eco council, because I know at school where I used to be a school governor, they had an eco council, and those children came out. They were elected. They came out from class for like 15 minutes and would work with the teacher on what they were doing. But this eco club is not like that. On the other hand, I must also say to St. Nick's, and I think Michelle, when she came in, she was impressed with the children, because I have to say, the problem is of climate change and understanding it. It's taught in the school anyway. And I mean, I know that because when I was a teacher, and I'm now going back a very long time, I can remember teaching my class about climate, about the greenhouse effect. So it's actually been present in primary school education for a long, long time. And I did check the other day that the children in St. Nick's absolutely understand why we have a problem with the climate and what is causing the problem. And I was absolutely delighted to find even the children in year 3 understood exactly why there's a problem. Maybe they don't see that actually it's running cars is a bit of a problem. They haven't got that far, or that actually it's the aspects of their life which are problematic. And in a way, I think it's rather hard to put these problems on the children. They can be aware of them, but you don't want them to be a problem to the children. Does that help?
Thank you. Yeah, no, it does help. I guess hearing everybody is kind of made me reflect on the fact that, does it need to be a teacher doing this over the lunchtime, or can this just be integrated into our class work, our curriculum? I think Marie-Noël.
Great. And I just wanted to say, for anyone online who wants to contribute, I think we have Billy monitoring the chat, and also if you want to say something out loud, just put your hand up and unmute yourself, and we'll hear you in the room.
Thank you. I want to follow on from what you're saying. So I'm a year 5 teacher here at the school, and it's part of the curriculum that we teach. Actually, it's on the language side of the week. So we split our world of discovery teaching subjects, and it's on the language side of the week, and I'm the English teacher. But how do we engage others in the school beyond the Eco Club? Well, for example, in year 5 on the English side, we took part in this technology project with Nina, with the UCL, where the children, I suppose you're going to talk about that later. So although that doesn't fold into what the Eco Club is doing, it's a way of bringing the subject alive to the children, and to enable them to feel that, rather than making lots of suggestions, which they do already in our school through things like school council and how we're going to, affect our environment. But actually, what I found exciting about the project that Nina was running was enabling children to feel as though their suggestions were going to feed into something that would have real world effects. And similarly, just more broadly, it's folding it into other parts of our curriculum. So the children in my 2 classes were encouraged to write. So there was a great green poetry machine competition this year, where they were writing poems about the climate and about the environment and about sustainability, where they were published. So they now have a published book that's, through an external sort of competition thing. So how are others engaged in school? It's through the natural sort of curriculum anyway, in lots and lots of different ways. So in a sense, what the Eco Club does to our school is it enhances and it pulls together, and it gives a real, I think, a shareholder focus as well, through things like the wildflower garden, to really engage all of the school community. Because as you say, within our curriculum, it is a thread that runs through our teaching. And I think, what do we take away from this? I would love to see, as a teacher, places where children feel that somehow they've been heard, and that their idea has been heard, and that, your students, maybe what really fired them up was the thought that somebody could take their ideas and do something techie with them, because if we enable them to feel that they've got a foot in the door and something can be done, as they grow up and learn to code or whatever, you're shaping those young minds to want to do that, and to realize that those are possibilities that they can follow.
Wow. Amazing point. Thank you. Maybe continuing on this theme of maximizing impact, would anyone else like to contribute? Maybe Michelle.
Thank you. I'm so happy I came today, because it's a tough gig, isn't it? This climate emergency stuff, and engaging with everyone on the subject. So hearing what I've heard today, I'm feeling really optimistic and encouraged. And I'm thinking that, One Planet Abingdon, in Abingdon, in the center of Abingdon, we have this most amazing website, and we have areas on our website for young people in schools. It would be incredible if all this lovely stuff that the children are creating, like the podcast and the little film, so that when people visit our website, you know, and there are teachers, parents looking at our website, they can be inspired. For example, when we were invited to the Abingdon School to participate in what Tony was explaining, I had been engaged with St. Helena and St. Catherine's group of girls, and I invited them as part of One Planet to come along, because I knew that they want what Abingdon School's got. So they were there, and so they bringing that message, not me, they bringing it to their school. So we really, really, really need to work together, share what we're doing, and not stop, basically. Because, you know, we've been operational for 18 months. And when I leaflet in the marketplace, there are still most of the people who don't know who we are. And we're right there. So we've got to work so hard.
I think one of the nicest things I've seen is that my husband, who's an oceanographer, has been regularly visiting a village school. And this year he was invited to go because 2 village schools had got together, working together, and they ran their own COP conference. So each group took a country and examined what that country was doing. And it was the most marvelous thing to watch these children doing. So, and if you want a bright idea, run a COP day.
Thank you. We have someone online who'd like to share something. So please just unmute your microphone and we should be able to hear you. I wonder if I'll have to turn off the mics. I'm not sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Is it echoing for you?
Right. Hi, my name is Aman. I teach at the City of London School for Girls in London. And I've been sort of introducing, I teach at the other end of the spectrum, so it's sixth form only. So my interest is in the older, I suppose, children, and then moving into the workplace and careers, etc. And basically, over the last year, I created a new course which was meant to run like an A-level as an optional course for the students on climate change, the challenges and the solutions, because I think quite a lot of the eco-anxiety that is felt is because of a sense of powerlessness rather than people. I feel that students don't, you know, even though they may be parts of, you know, they may join eco clubs, etc. They don't see the big picture, and you know, somewhere in the back of their head, you know, they're thinking that will we really save the planet by if I don't throw this plastic in this bin and I throw it in that bin. You know, there are bigger levers, and understanding of all the levers in the order of priority made me think that we actually need a deep dive into the subject. So we're lucky our school's given us the room to offer it on the timetable, and so I'm piloting it with the students. But in order, when I was designing the course, I needed to practice it because I'm no expert. I'm creating the course and learning as I go along. And so I needed to run the course several times. And of course, with students, it tends to be an annual cycle when you're learning a new thing. So I decided to offer it to the parents as an after-school club. And to my surprise, actually, quite a lot of parents took that up. And we ran that course. I ran the course. It ran as a more gentle version. Of course, there was no assessment. It worked like a book club. They had homework to do. They had reading and listening to do for each seminar. It was a seminar-based course. And we ran it for 16 consecutive weeks. It was an hour after school every week. And it was quite an interesting experience. I think the parents were much more engaged than the students. And for me, it was much more enjoyable running that course because the parents brought a lot of their experience to the discussion. They were more empowered. to make decisions and make a difference. And some of them felt that it helped them in their working lives. I mean, one person was writing their sustainability policy for their firm, which is a multi-billion-dollar firm. And actually, she said it really did help her to shape that policy. So it was interesting that, and I feel that actually a school is a multi-stakeholder community, and sometimes it's actually easier to influence the decision of children through the parents. So it occurred to me that maybe there's scope for schools to run this kind of gentle book club kind of seminar-based course and draw in the parents. It's a nice thing for them too. Ours is a fee-paying school, so they pay fees, but here's something that the parents are getting in return for free. So that, in a nutshell, was my experience of drawing in the parents. Separately, and you can stop me if the others want to jump in. Separately, with the students, I created a sort of an easy protocol to estimate the school's carbon footprint. And so we produced a number last December for the school. And that actually, the fact that the school and the students generated that number created a much better discussion than bringing an external consultant who charges thousands of pounds, because then it feels like a magic number which you have no connection with. Whereas if you go through the exercise and create the number, it started a whole discussion. And now suddenly, of course, the leadership team in the school are now interested, because now that you have a number, now the next thing is what you do about it. So now the governors and the whole leadership structure is also involved. So, that was just sharing my journey in bringing two kinds of stakeholders into the thing, which started off really as aimed squarely at students, but now it's drawn in other bits of the school community.
Hi, Aman. Thank you so much. I think people got really excited and started scribbling notes as you were talking. So I think that was extremely valuable. So building on kind of the parent theme, is there do we have expertise from our parent group that we could bring in? How do we engage parents a bit more? Does something like this after school club appeal to others? And we just have a couple more minutes. We're about 10 minutes behind, but I think it'll be okay if we run a bit over. And I apologize for those online.
Hi, so I'm a parent at Europa, and I also, climate change is my bread and butter because I work for the International Institute for Environment and Development. So just coming at that question from a slightly different perspective, I wonder if there are other parents who have a background in this subject matter. Europa runs a science week, and maybe there's some crossover there, and maybe this already happens as part of Science Week. But where parents are invited in to share their expertise in an accessible way with classes. I wonder if there's a way to do that with eco subject matter, because the institute where I work it's not science, it's the social aspects of climate and adaptation and all those sorts of things. And there might be others, particularly with our proximity to Oxford, there might be other people who could share that kind of expertise, either with parents or with children.
Hi, I'm Zora. I am trustee of a charity called Orinoco. It's an environmental charity which has been there in Oxford for last 29 years. Our mission, I've just got the mission statement, is to banish boredom and save the planet using creativity and play to inspire the reuse of materials.
Can you state again the
mission?
The name?
Orinoco. Oxfordshire Scrap Store. We've been around. We are one of the oldest environmental charities in Oxfordshire, and amazing. Every year we reduce landfill material up to 20,000 kilos a year. Wow. We have two stores now, one in Banbury and one in Oxford, and there are few parents who go there, and there are two very dedicated teachers who go there. One of them is my son's Spanish teacher and the Europa librarian in the senior school. And this charity, we get things from companies that they would be actually throwing them in the bin, and we want to prolong the life of material. That's how we work. And we want to reuse material. We want to teach people how to reuse, how to prolong the life of materials, and how you can make it fun for children and adults at the same time. And my charity last year in February got, the school got about £600-700 worth of books on art and languages and other subjects, that whatever the librarian she felt she could take. And we just said, give us some money, and we didn't care how much they gave. That was the main thing. And I'm going to come and do one session next week with making something with scrap. So if anybody in Oxfordshire is there, do contact us. We are truly have been in business for a long time, and we have done our bit to highlight the importance of reducing waste.
That sounds like some amazing opportunities there. What, 30 seconds to a minute? Yeah.
Okay, my name is Luciana. I do have expertise, so I'm biologist, master PhD in marine biology, mostly on anthropogenic impact in estuaries. So I have a long experience on that, but I can't help, and it's amazing what we're doing. But I'm here for my children, right? They are primary school children, and I would suggest that climate emergency or climate crisis might frighten some of them, as you mentioned, the other gentleman mentioned. We have a cohort of children already scared because of COVID, right? So I fully support sustainability. I'm here to choose words with the kids, because if they go to the website everywhere, they put climate change, climate crisis, they're gonna see the end of the world. That from fear, nothing comes good from fear. So I think what we're doing here is great. They feel they have the power. They feel they can change something. Once you choose the term climate emergency, for adults is fine, but not for I'm advocating for children here and their mental health. They don't need to be involved in all of that in that deep. They can, even for us adults, defining climate is hard, right? So that's what my piece of advice I have, and I'm fully supporting of all the, since a child, that's why I did biology. I want to save the Amazon, right? So I'm involved, but like since from the 80s, I was born in the 70s. There was so many crises since then, right? So we can discuss this forever, but I don't want my children to be scared. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we could probably continue talking about this for the rest of the night. We do want to share, though, some of the research that we've been doing with Europa. So we will move on to that. And we are running about 15 minutes late at this point. So if you do have to go online, just know that this is being recorded. So if you have to pop out, you can catch up at another time. Right? Really hard to see. There we go. My mouse, where's my mouse? Oh. There we go. Okie doke. Oh. Yes. Okay. Back on track. Okay. Yes. So this last portion of the event is about the work we've been doing with Europa on technology, data, and visualization, essentially developing a dashboard for the school. So let's first acknowledge that technology obviously has a lot of harms, right? It uses precious metals, it uses plastic. There's a lot of e-waste going into the environment every year. it's unlikely that we're going to stop using technology anytime soon. So at UCL, we're trying to look at how we can use technology for good, and to help support children, as they're very engaged with, they tend to be very engaged with technology. So what can it bring? So it can facilitate the planning, monitoring, and evaluation of their eco activities. It can help engage other school stakeholders, you know, to enhance the long-term sustainability of the initiative. We can't do it alone. And importantly, by getting children to engage in monitoring and evaluating and in engaging others, you know, this hopefully develops children's identities as agents of change. So along with the Eco Club, Stephanie, and my team of 3 master's students, Ale, who is online, you can wave at the others, Ale, Billy and Na, who are here with us in person. So we embarked on a mission to design this, to co-design a dashboard. So we engaged in a variety of activities, including 4 workshops, a series of interviews with both the kids and Stephanie, as well as observing their eco group. And we followed a 5-step design process. So first was about exploring the problem. So we did interviews, we did some observations of the meetings, and then we held an interview with the kids where we got them to design their own eco campaign, and, you know, discuss what type of data that they want to communicate with others and who they want to involve and who they want to target through these campaigns. We then held an ideation workshop with the kids where we brainstormed ideas about how data could be represented in different ways to communicate impact. We then went off and brought their ideas to life through some early prototypes. We then tested those with the kids, and Stephanie iterated on the prototype and then did a final evaluation just this past Monday. So it's all very fresh, to see how it actually was supporting the children's interpretations and also their kind of development of identities as agents of change. So this is just a snapshot. I won't stick around here, of some of the ideas the children developed, which we then iteratively implemented in our prototype. And here is the final version. So there's a little recording here. So it centers around the map of the school, and it's intended to create, you know, a sense of ownership over the activities, and it makes the activities much more tangible. Clicking on the map will lead to an activity page, gives more description and images. And there's also other information about the activity, in this case, the number of bottle caps saved in the mural, as well as a breakdown of participation. So back on, there are different activities and activity types. So this one is tracked over time, the number of bags of litter collected in the playground each week. Again, showing participation and some competition between classrooms. Back on the home page, we also have the environmental review, so which is out of 100, as Stephanie was describing. And then clicking on each of the topics will give kind of a more detailed breakdown of how the school did on each of the activities. So they can see where exactly they need to improve, and you can scroll by different years so that you can see progression over time. And finally, at the very bottom, we see kind of a larger view of the participation across all the activities categorized by the different topics that they were tackling that year. And then clicking further up that will give you an overview of a breakdown of participation across all the activities. And that is it, I believe. Yes. So that's the dashboard. Now my students are going to share a bit about their research findings around these 3 themes that we introduced. So first up, we have Na. Yeah.
Thank you, Andrew, very much. And now, firstly, I will talk about why our tool would be useful and helpful. And firstly, we use a co-design approach to develop this tool. And by involving stakeholders and users, it could help us to better understand our user needs and come up with solutions that are more useful, effective, and user-centered, and also increase user engagement. And to design for user, we do the co-design workshop with children. And actually, at the first, we discussed the kids' special needs and came up with solutions with them together. And also, we developed the tool, like we use the kids-friendly data visualization graphs and develop this children-friendly tool and update our prototype based on their feedback. And yes, and then this is about co-design. And also, in addition, we also hold interviews with their teachers like Stephanie and some of their parents, and which help us to understand the different views of our stakeholders. And yes, and the second is about our evaluation. We got a lot of positive feedback during the formative evaluation and summative evaluation parts. And for example, for children, all our participants said our tool is easy for them to understand, and their ideas contribute to they thought their idea contribute to the design process, and they would like to introduce our tool to their friends. And for the teachers like Stephanie, especially Stephanie, she also gave us a lot of positive feedback about, such as like she thought our tool would be helpful for monitoring and the evaluation of eco activities, and it also could guide the future plans for the eco activities. And also some parents also replied to us that they would like to see what is happening at school and what their kids have done for the eco activities through our tool. So in a word, we believe our tool it's a children-friendly tool that would be very helpful for the monitoring and the evaluation of eco activities. And now I will pass to Billy to talk about engagement for sustainability.
Thank you. So for long-term sustainability of the Eco School program, the senior school leadership, parents, and the other children in the school need to be engaged. So at the start of the project, the Eco coordinator realized that waste would be an important topic for the school to tackle, and a difficult one. And as you can see from the environmental review scores, waste was one of the lowest scoring topics. So when we presented it to the Eco coordinator, she said she would need the senior school leadership to help because she cannot do it by herself. When we presented it to the children, it was very interesting because when we asked them to say, how do you think a tool like this can be used to engage people outside the classroom? One of the children that suggested that we could show it to the headmaster so that they can see that the Eco Club is making progress. So as they see that the scores are increasing year by year, they can see visually that the program is working, and they would be motivated to support their activities. And another thing we found interesting was that we can use this tool to sort of engage parents. And when we gave this tool to the children, they naturally sort of navigated to seeing the participation of the parents. And in some cases, they were disappointed if the numbers were really low. So we see this as an opportunity for the school to create opportunities for the parents to be involved more and to sort of motivate them to actually, be engaged more. And lastly, there is an opportunity to engage other children. as the children in the Eco Club used the tool, they would say that their other friends would be interested in a tool like this. And when they were looking at the participation numbers and where they noticed that the Eco Club numbers were low, they would say, okay, maybe we need to recruit more. So we noticed that this tool was sort of acting as a conversation piece, and it was allowing the children and the parents to sort of discuss what the school can do by looking at the criteria for each of those topics. So we think this is a great opportunity.
Thank you so much, Billy. And last but not least, we have Ale, who is online. So Ale, I'm going to mute on my end so that you can talk on yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry for not being in person. But okay, so one of the objectives of our study was to see how participatory design processes could help in reinforcing identities as agents of change. So this means that we were looking at how the collaborative creation of this digital tool could empower children within sustainability education. So our main discoveries there were that the children really enjoyed these design processes consisting of the different workshops that Andrea already mentioned, and they really enjoyed many of them, from the ideation and the brainstorming activities to the ones that involve the use of the prototype, which is essential for the generation of engagement. We also found that they felt that they actively contributed to the making of the tool. For example, they commented in several occasions how much they like that the ideas that they brainstormed during all of these workshops help on the making of the tool. And also that they were very aware of the modifications that we have done on the tool based on their comments and feedback. Lastly, and like very important, we found that the children can actually see potential in these technologies. They think that they have a positive impact in environmental sustainability and really felt motivated to do something similar in the future. They also mentioned that the use of technologies would be very helpful to motivate others to participate in sustainability actions. So other school members, their parents, other kids, and etc. So thank you for listening. Again, I'm sorry not being there.
That's perfectly fine. We miss you, but we'll catch up later. All right, so just to close off, sorry, Stephanie, we don't have time for, oh, there you are. We're going to skip your reflections, but in the discussion, you can comment. So just to finish off, let's just have a brief discussion and then I'll let you guys go to your snacks and such. And so we have some prompts. So what do you think? Did you resonate with, oh, and I'll share my screen, of course. Did you resonate? Did any of the findings resonate with you? How do you think this would be useful at other schools, or do you? What's missing? Anything goes, really. I'm going to hide these controls. How does that look for you? Good. Yes.
I was just wondering, the dashboard and the inputting of the data, how does that all work? Is it an app on the children's phone, or?
So currently, no, we would rely on the kids to record the data manually and then ask Stephanie to enter it into a Microsoft or a Google form, essentially, which would then populate a spreadsheet. So it's a bit low tech currently on the back end. We're looking for further funding to develop it into something a bit more robust. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Do you want to mention that the idea that you have to work with the Eco School to broaden the
Yeah,
reach
so
of this
so
school?
currently I've applied for funding alongside folks from the Eco School program. And if we get this, we will be able to engage more schools in the development of it. So, you know, this is based on the needs of Europa. So if we were to get this funding, and, you know, fingers crossed, but funding is unpredictable, then we'll be able to engage several more schools in the development and hopefully make something that's, you know, more transferable to other contexts. Maybe even design it in a way that can go stretch beyond the Eco School framework. For instance, you know, that environmental review, you can imagine that that could just be represented in a different way, that it's not those 10 topics, but it could be like the 10 principles, for instance, from the One Planet Living program. So there's a lot of potential there to take this further. Yeah. Just make sure it's not blue. That's the only thing. Yeah.
Where is this tool? We can't access it. We can't have a look at it. Can we?
It is. So
Oh, this week. Right. Okay. I haven't missed anything.
yes.
That's all right. Yeah.
So the current version, I'll have Stephanie will send the link around for Europa students, or sorry, Europa parents. But more broadly, it will be available for others to download through Tableau to set up at their own schools. It takes a little bit of knowledge of Tableau. So I'm planning to put together some documentation to support schools to set this up if they should want to. Yeah.
And the other thing, I mean, I've seen it very, very briefly, but it's a bit of what we call gaming, but isn't gaming as, you know, gambling. Is a bit of you know, you have your I'm sorry, I didn't see it properly, but you know, you have your
targets,
targets and everything. So I think for kids, they would like it, like, you know, I mean, I don't know, maybe something you've planned, but yeah, add a bit of points.
Yeah, I think
a
there's
bit of interactivity in terms of you know, images, adding images, like, you know, that they take pictures, they upload their pictures, and I appreciate it's, you know, it's a brand new thing.
No,
but,
absolutely. It was somewhat a limitation of the technology. So we're using a system called Tableau to generate the visualizations. And so it's not as flexible as a website where you could insert photographs and such like that. So right now we're linking to external, you know, web page photographs. But yes, this was kind of in the idea space, but just some of the things are not implementable until we have until we invest in a more robust platform, really. But yes, there's so much we could do. We could even, you know, if more schools were involved and if there was some sort of central database, then you could imagine that you could compare between schools and, you know, have a bit of intra-school competition, you know. So I think there's a lot of potential. Competition or collaboration, I should say, not just competition. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
And on the dashboard where you kind of looked at each of so you'd done your kind of what targets you wanted to achieve, it'd almost be nice if then within that target you could almost, not as a diary, but kind of log whether it was photos, like your progress through, and then another school would be able to see kind of another school's journey and the steps they'd taken and kind of how long it had taken them to achieve. So whether it was reducing waste and kind of, well, here's what our waste looked like at the start, and then here's kind of the steps we put in place. Here's photos of, you know, whether it's new recycling bins or whatever the school have done.
Yeah.
So my school, we've recently got one of the clothing banks put kind of by our main entrance. So kind of not just for our parents, but community can use it as well. And if they've got clothing that they want to be recycled rather than just throw away, they've got kind of that option. So I don't know whether that's something that would be able to be built in. So on kind of where you were looking at how many people have been involved,
yeah,
and how that impact score had changed. Well, actually, could you log and show evidence of
change that another school could then look at and see.
Yeah, these are all fantastic ideas. Yeah. Lots of opportunity to grow. All right. One more comment from Stephanie.
And I just wanted to say thank you so much to UCL for creating this, because I think this is an amazing tool. The idea that we are a state school, we don't have money, it's okay to say. And the children did this. The children built this with the UCL team, and I am sharing it in the newsletter, which Lynn just said will come next Tuesday. It's the first version, but next year is a new year, and we're going to be able to start making this a real living tool, and a tool that I hope will broaden the network that we are building at the moment. But also, based on your point, I love the idea, and I'm hoping that this will work, that this tool can then be used by other schools, and it will be yet another way to share best practices and to learn from each other, because this is really what, Michelle, you are communicating very strongly. And I so agree that we can do the best we can on our own, but we're going to be much quicker if we work together. So I'm so excited about this tool.
Thank you,
Thank
Stephanie.
you.
All right, so I think we'll call it there. So for those of you online, if you can please complete this short survey just about your experience at this event and what you learned, that would be fantastic. For those in person, you can also do it online. We also have some printouts, so if you want to go lo-fi. And if you really just want to eat and chat, I will send around an email with this link so that you can complete it, hopefully tomorrow. Don't forget about it. So yes, so thank you all so much. And if you want to support my students' research, they have like 5 minutes of questions. So if you'd like to talk with them, that they would really appreciate it. Thanks so much. Thank you everyone online.